Hello everyone. This is my 11th weekly blog, and I just want to give a shout out to those clubs that are sharing these with their members each week. Here's a special thanks to Coquille Rotary Club President Bruce Parker, who emailed me just this morning saying that by sharing these blogs on their big screen every week, it keeps their members connected. So thanks, Bruce. I really appreciate that. That's what these blogs are all about. So here's a reminder to everyone, too, that these blogs are archived on our district website at district5110.org, thanks to webmaster PDG John Bushnell. This week, I visited clubs in Albany, Lebanon, and Sweet Home. Monday afternoon, I arrived in Albany for a club leadership meeting with Albany Club President Dr. Tammy Cushing and her board. I learned something new about Rotary at each of these club meetings, and this one was no different. Albany Rotary is the lead organizer for Lynn County's Junior First Citizen program, something it does in partnership with the Greater Albany, Lebanon, and Sweet Home clubs. For fundraisers, the club does a wine walk and then also collects fees for cars parking at the fairgrounds for a big horse show that's held there annually. And then the club awards about $5,000 a year to local charities in roughly $1,000 increments. Albany Rotary did a visioning a couple of years ago, but the board feels it wouldn't hurt to revisit its goals with an action plan. Albany Rotary has some great service projects. One of them is putting on an annual Christmas party for disadvantaged second graders, giving these kids clothing, gifts, and a wonderful holiday experience. Planning is underway right now for a new service project that will add handicapped seating at Monteith Park for the outdoor concerts that are held there. A pending challenge for the club is how to best manage its cash reserves. Isn't that a good problem to have? Albany Rotary is generous in sharing its resources, but wonders whether it should establish a policy to guide its decision-making. They're thinking about that. The club supports sending students to Grile, Rotary Youth Leadership Awards, and also supports the Youth Exchange Program. And the club is currently helping support a global grant being developed by the Greater Albany Rotary Club that'll provide computers for students in Sierra Leone. Last year, the club hosted the group study exchange team visiting from Guatemala, and historically, it's been a huge supporter of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. This is an undertaking it does in partnership with the other Lynn County Rotary clubs and United Way. Tuesday morning, I met President Tammy at West Albany High School for the first meeting of the year for the West Albany High School Interact Club, presided over by none other than D5110 Interact Governor Emma Cushing, President Tammy's daughter. It's a family affair, you see. And it was great to have Interact advisor Steve Mathis with us from the Greater Albany Club. Interact is one of Steve's passions. From the sound of things, these high schoolers are going to have a great year ahead of them. On Tuesday, I paid my official visit to Albany Rotary Club, and I need to say that President Tammy Cushing is an amazing leader and an accomplished professional. She has a PhD in forestry with an emphasis in finance and taxation. How about that? So I guess her hobby really shouldn't surprise us that much. Tammy throws axes competitively and has won prizes. Can you imagine? Before the meeting began, I got to meet incoming youth exchange student Andres from Colombia. He's being hosted by Dr. Laura Willette, who had picked him up just the night before at 1 o'clock in the morning at PDX in Portland. So with very little sleep after a tiring trip, as you can see, Andres was very happy to meet the club's Rotarians. Last spring, I visited a club to share some thoughts about membership, and it was truly nice to see so many familiar faces again. It's a great club. And it was really nice to have PDG Dave Reese, former First Lady Nancy Reese, and Steve Mathis with us at the meeting. Stumping for Assistant Governor Bruce Allen, PDG Dave introduced me formally to the club with an introduction that I'm sure my mother would have loved. Honestly, PDG Dave made me blush. In some ways, I've modeled my governor message after Dave's approach because he always spoke from the heart, and that's what I'm trying to do as I share a story about Rotary and how it's changed my life, helping me overcome a pretty serious personal health challenge. Membership is a priority for Albany Rotary, and so I wasn't surprised to see a new member inducted during the meeting. President Tammy did an exceptionally nice job with the induction, explaining how belonging to a Rotary Club is a privilege and a wonderful opportunity to serve. Here's a shout out to Crystal Harris for sponsoring the new member. When it came time to recognize one of the club's exceptionally inspirational Rotarians, it was no surprise that President Tammy wanted this honor to go to Dr. Laura Willett. Tammy called out Laura for her infectious smile and contagious positive attitude about everything she does for the club. Take a look. It's always fun to recognize these exceptional Rotarians, and with one of the Myrtlewood inspirational blocks that I present to each one of them. And finally, wasn't it nice to see some rain arriving in Western Oregon? This is what I encountered as I headed away from Albany. About time, I say. On Wednesday, I headed over to Lebanon for a meeting with President Lorley Engler and the Lebanon Rotary Club Board. I hadn't been to Lebanon for quite a while and was pleased to see the community looking so vibrant and economically healthy. President Lorley manages an aquatic district, and that's just one of the community's many assets. Kim Cleveland is the club's foundation chair. She's a seasoned Rotarian. A few years ago, Kim was a group study exchange team member who traveled to India with team leader Nancy Hughes, one of the Champion of Change Rotarians honored at the White House for her humanitarian work. Like almost every club I've visited so far, membership is a major concern for the Lebanon Rotarians, but the club is working hard on this. Membership Committee Chair Ed Skipper is reaching out to 100 community contacts in an effort to tell Rotary's story and hopefully attract new members. The club has coined RISE, R-I-S-E, as the cornerstone for its Rotary messaging, with these letters standing for relationships, international, service, and ethics. This does describe Rotary. Lebanon Rotary also completed a visioning process a couple years ago, but agrees it'd be a good idea to follow up again. I actually think that's a good idea for most clubs. If your club is interested in this, please let me know. One of the really neat things Lebanon Rotary does is its Junior Rotarian program. Each month during the school year, 3 local high school juniors are selected to visit the club and introduce themselves. At the end of the year, then, these 27 high school juniors are eligible for one of the club's scholarship. Pretty neat approach, I say. President Lorley presented a multiple Paul Harris to club member Joanne Nelson and invited me to offer a few comments, which of course I did. It's always great when these Paul Harrises are awarded at club meetings because it shows our support for the foundation and sets an example for others. So thanks, Joanne. It's not about the money, you know, it's about what the money does. President Laura Lee said it was impossible for her to identify just one person as exceptionally inspirational amongst the club's members because there's so many. She left this for me to decide, so I did. Gary Marks is the Lebanon city manager and a former colleague of mine. When I was city manager in Coos Bay, Gary was city manager in North Bend. I hadn't seen Gary for 20 years, and so afterwards we got together for coffee and to compare some scars. I gotta tell you, these city manager jobs are not for the faint at heart. Gary is one of the most ethical managers I ever had the privilege of working with. And yes, he is an inspiration. It was great to see him again. I headed east from Lebanon and met up with Sweet Home President Blake Kieseker and his club leadership. Rotary is also a family affair for Blake. His father, Joel, is a past president of the club, and I think his grandfather was one of the club's charter members, if I'm not mistaken. The Sweet Home Club acknowledges they need more members and agree that doing a better job telling their story will help attract some to the club. Still, though, I don't think the club does a poor job telling their story. Check them out on social media. I think you'll agree with me. For years, the club's main fundraiser was a food booth at the Oregon Jamboree, but for various reasons, revenues from this declined substantially over the years to the point that it became more work than it was worth for the club members. It was a lot of work. So now the club has a golf tournament and a poker tournament to generate most of the $6,000 it needs to support the scholarships and other programs it values every year. In addition to scholarships, the club is a strong supporter of the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. It does an Easter egg hunt every year and a Halloween event, as you can see. It's pretty amazing that the club has started a junior high interact club, the only one I've ever heard of for a middle school, which has 12 to 18 kids in it. The Sweet Home Rotary started this middle school program because it recognized the need to develop young leaders. These junior high interactors do 3 projects every year. They do a school project, a community project, and a world project. Youth are clearly a club priority. Retired Sweet Home School Superintendent Larry Horton says the club is attempting to brand its youth program Read, Lead, Succeed. The read part is the Dolly Parton Library. The lead part is Grile, and the succeed part is its scholarship program. The club also sends 2 kids to Grile every year. When it came to calling out the club's 2 most inspirational Rotarians, it was Larry Horton and relatively new member Janine Saunders who received the Myrtlewood blocks. Thanks, both of you, for all you do. By the way, Larry Horton mentioned that he'd had worked all day on the district grant application for the club's Dolly Parton Imagination Library district grant and was pretty frustrated with the application until he got some great help from grants team member Julie DeCuro. Julie must be getting pretty used to these compliments by now because she deserves lots of them. She's incredibly helpful when clubs get stuck or need a little boost with their district grant applications. Talk about inspiration, that's Julie. Sweet Home Rotary is a small club, but like so many of the small clubs I've visited, it's a club that makes a difference in the community and in the world. One last thing, I want to give another shout out and thanks to PDG Dave and Nancy for joining us for this wonderful evening in Sweet Home. Well, folks, that's it for this week. Next week, I'm heading back over to the Valley to visit clubs in Eugene, where Rotary has such a rich tradition of service. So until then, dream big, have fun, get stuff done, and be the inspiration. Bye-bye.